Top 10 stones found after nightmares and hauntings. Some sleep disorders are predictable: stress, light exposure, and neurological imbalance. Others aren't. Across 3 continents, scattered in hospitals, bedrooms, excavation sites, and sealed dormitories, there are records of people waking suddenly and describing the same symptoms: pressure on the chest, immobility, a presence in the room. No shared culture, no prior contact. But in each case, something physical was left behind. A stone, not part of the furniture, not listed in any inventory, found only after the last nightmare, always unnoticed until the sleep stopped working. This documentary examines 10 verified cases in which stones, geologically real, not symbolic, were recovered only after disturbances in sleep or perception. No claims of the supernatural, just the data. And what was left in its wake? Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th, Jet A Black Fossil. Found after a pattern of disturbed sleep. Jet is not a mineral in the traditional sense. It is a mineraloid formed from driftwood buried under sediment and compressed over millions of years. Composed almost entirely of organic carbon, it carries the visual appearance of black glass. But it is light, warm to the touch, and softly absorbent to oils from human skin. Technically classified as lignite, jet is the product of fossilized plant matter, not crystal growth. It is found in only a few parts of the world, with the most culturally significant source located in Whitby, England. Throughout Victorian Britain, jet was used extensively for mourning jewelry. It absorbed no light and reflected no color. For many, it symbolized grief that could not be spoken. However, in older local records, such as parish logs and informal health ledgers, jet appears in context beyond mourning. It was quietly removed from rooms where children suffered from repetitive night terrors. In some villages across North Yorkshire, there are reports of rooms being cleared of blackwood after multiple complaints of nighttime pressure on the chest, visual hallucinations at the threshold of waking, or what modern sleep medicine would call hypnagogic intrusion. One of the most well-documented findings occurred in 1978 in a 3-story care home undergoing wall insulation upgrades. Workers found a small, unpolished piece of jet embedded behind the headboard of a bed in room 3C. No tenant on record had reported it. The stone had been sandwiched between wooden slats, suggesting deliberate placement. According to archived tenant reports from the prior 5 years, all 3 occupants of that room experienced disrupted sleep, describing similar episodes of waking up frozen in place, feeling heavy air, or sensing the presence of another person. In one instance, a tenant requested relocation due to black figures pacing the floor during episodes of paralysis. After the jet was removed from the wall and archived, no further complaints were recorded in that unit. The artifact was examined and confirmed to be Whitby jet, raw, not commercially worked, and geologically consistent with material mined in the 19th century. It now resides in a closed-access drawer within a university collection, marked not as an object of value, but as a specimen connected to site-specific human distress. There is no confirmed mechanism by which jet lag affects sleep. It does not emit radiation, contain heavy metals, or show any magnetic properties. But in spaces where it has been found, especially where it was never meant to be, records often include the same line: recurring nightmares, always after midnight, often unresolved. Ranked 9th, Boji Stone, documented sleep disruption, and a mineral no facility claimed. Boji stones are not singular minerals, but geological composites, dense metallic nodules composed primarily of pyrite and marcasite, often layered with traces of palladium or magnetite. Found almost exclusively in a restricted zone of western Kansas, Boji stones are naturally occurring concretions formed through sedimentary compression and mineral replacement over tens of millions of years. What makes them notable is not their appearance, matte, gray, and iron heavy, but their structural polarity. Many pairs contain naturally opposing magnetic charges. When tested under laboratory conditions, some individuals exhibit a measurable response to low-frequency electromagnetic fields, provided that exposure remains within safe human limits. Despite this, the stones have appeared, unexplained and undocumented, in several U.S. clinical environments tied to recurring reports of sleep disturbance. In 2004, a rehabilitation wing in Missouri specializing in post-traumatic sleep disorder began to see a cluster of patients reporting parallel symptoms: involuntary movement during deep sleep, vivid auditory hallucinations between 1 and 3 a.m., and strong metallic smells upon waking. No environmental toxins were found, no power surges, but all 5 affected patients had slept within the same room rotation. During the 2005 renovation of the floor, a Boji Stone pair was discovered sealed in a drawer cavity under a bed in room 214. No staff recalled placing it there. The stones had no barcodes, no catalog entry, and no patient had claimed them. They were tested and confirmed to be genuine specimens from the Smoky Hill region, unaltered, slightly magnetic, and marked by surface etching likely caused by prolonged exposure to bedding moisture and oxidized air. Medical records from the facility indicate that, following the removal of the stones, the 5 patients in question returned to their baseline sleep profiles within 2 weeks, without any changes in medication. No further episodes were recorded in room 214. This was not the only case. In 2013, a Boji Stone was found embedded under floorboards at a residential support center in Oklahoma. Following 3 months of anonymous complaints involving the same symptoms, sleep paralysis, grinding sounds with no mechanical source, and extreme temperature variation between night hours. Again, the stone was unlisted. Again, symptoms ceased after removal. There is no published research linking Boji stones to altered sleep cycles, yet they continue to surface in controlled environments, clinical, sealed, and otherwise stable, after sleep becomes abnormal, not before. As of 2024, there are 7 known cases in which the stones were physically extracted from facilities with unresolved night disturbances. None were ever entered into inventory systems. None were returned to use. Ranked 8th, Psilomelane, dark manganese, found after collective night terror events. Psilomelane is a hydrous barium and manganese oxide, structurally similar to pyrolusite, but often distinguished by its smooth, dark metallic surface, occasionally banded or botryoidal in form. It is heavy, opaque, and naturally non-magnetic. Formed through low-temperature hydrothermal activity or oxidation of manganese-bearing rocks, Psilomelane deposits are known in Germany, the southwestern United States, and several mineralized belts in central Mexico. In 1986, a decommissioned manganese mine in Zacatecas State, Mexico, was temporarily repurposed as a field barracks for civil engineering teams restoring a collapsed aquifer tunnel. Within 2 weeks of habitation, 4 crew members reported intense sleep disruption, including night terrors, auditory distortions, and the sensation of choking while asleep. A 5th individual recorded spontaneous nosebleeds during REM sleep. Symptoms occurred exclusively in the bunkhouse Sector B. No carbon monoxide leaks were found. No infectious agents were detected. A local toxicology consultant identified a minor elevation in ambient manganese particulate near the floorboards, but levels remained within federal safety thresholds. Still, a complete evacuation was ordered, and environmental teardown proceeded over 2 days. Under the concrete slab foundation of Sector B, workers unearthed a rounded iron-black stone, semi-glossy and dense to the touch, embedded directly beneath where the main cot had been placed. Mineralogical testing later confirmed the object to be a high-purity mass of natural psilomelane, with a manganese oxide content exceeding 80%. The stone was unworked and uncut, showing no tool marks, consistent with natural erosion exposure, but unlikely to occur within a reinforced subfloor fill. In the years following the incident, similar material was found beneath 2 more sleeping quarters in mining communities near Guadalajara and Durango. In both cases, residents described experiencing night pressure, characterized by short, waking dreams of faces without motion, and irregular auditory perceptions between 1:30 and 4 a.m. In each location, a piece of psilomelane was found within proximity of the affected sleep site, never cataloged, never claimed. Unlike radioactive minerals, psilomelane emits no ionizing energy. However, trace manganese inhalation is known to affect the basal ganglia in extreme cases, and manganese exposure has been loosely associated with neurological symptoms, including disrupted circadian rhythm. Whether the stone's mere presence contributes to these events is not demonstrable, but its pattern of discovery, after clusters of dream distortion and distress, has made it a focus of multiple independent sleep environment case logs since the early 2000s. Today, 3 of the extracted samples are housed in separate institutional archives. None are on display. Each is stored in sealed isolation. Ranked 7th, Hyalite Opal, a glassy silicate, recovered after unreported sleep disturbance patterns. Hyalite opal is a hydrated amorphous form of silica, chemically similar to quartz but lacking any crystalline structure. It forms as a secondary deposit along volcanic fractures and gas cavities, particularly in rhyolitic environments. Its key identifiers, colorless to pale green transparency, high water content, and distinct ultraviolet fluorescence. Under standard lighting, hyalite appears inert. Under UV exposure, it glows bright green, sometimes blue, an effect caused by trace elements such as uranium or vanadium, even in non-radioactive concentrations. In 1992, a secondary school dormitory in Nógrád County, northern Hungary, was evacuated temporarily after 5 students in adjacent rooms experienced overlapping symptoms. Visual disturbances in low light, disrupted deep sleep, and false awakenings over multiple nights. School logs describe early reports as sleepwalking with no movement, followed by anxiety in evening hours and resistance to returning to the same beds. Teachers dismissed it as seasonal stress. The pattern was not officially acknowledged until one of the rooms, room 27, underwent maintenance due to water seepage from an upper-level pipe. Floorboards were removed to inspect the substructure. Beneath the eastern bedpost, workers found a transparent, colorless mass roughly the size of a thumb, partially embedded in dust and degraded bedding fiber. The object was set aside and later fluoresced during a routine safety sweep using UV light. It emitted a sharp green glow. Initial testing confirmed it as natural hyalite opal, non-gem grade, likely local in origin. The specimen exhibited moderate phosphorescence and stable fluorescence under long-wave UV light. No faculty or students recognized the object. No records of field collection or acquisition could be located. A regional folklorist consulted by school staff noted that hyalite opal is mentioned in mid-19th century accounts from the area, occasionally described as the eye that doesn't sleep. In historical accounts, stones with internal glow, particularly those found in bedding or cracks near sleep spaces, were often removed discreetly without formal explanation. No causality was implied. However, the presence of near-sleep disturbance was recurrent. After the opal's removal, no further complaints were filed from room 27. The object was transferred to a mineral collection at Eötvös-Loránd University, categorized as unverified field sample, dormitory retrieval. Its location is logged but not publicly displayed. To date, no physical property of hyalite opal is known to affect human physiology. It emits no measurable radiation and contains no active compounds, but its visibility changes under spectral lighting, appearing inert until illuminated by frequencies invisible to the eye. In several recovered cases, the stone was not noticed until after sleep symptoms began and was never reported before it was removed. Ranked 6th, Staurolite twin crystal crosses recovered from recurrent sleepwalking zones. Staurolite is an iron-aluminum silicate mineral, typically forming under regional metamorphism in schist and gneiss environments. Its atomic structure causes it to crystallize in twin cross-shaped forms, most commonly at 60 degrees or 90 degrees intersections. These distinctive cross twins earned the mineral various regional names: fairy crosses, cross stones, or devil's nails, depending on local beliefs. Staurolite is physically stable, non-toxic, and non-fluorescent, with no known electromagnetic properties. In the central Appalachian region of the United States, particularly along the Georgia-Virginia axis, staurolite is relatively common, often collected recreationally or kept in small household jars as a cultural talisman. However, in several archived sleep clinic interviews from 1970 to 1994, the stones appear in a very different context. Between 1976 and 1981, a private family in Floyd County, Virginia, documented recurring sleep disturbances involving their 7-year-old son. The child exhibited multiple verified episodes of sleepwalking, navigating stairs without waking, stopping at specific points in the home, and then returning to bed without any memory. These episodes escalated to include nightly waking at precisely 2:12 a.m., reported sensations of a presence standing near the bed, and night terrors with visual content focused on a glowing black cross in the floor. No medical or environmental explanations were found. After a particularly severe episode, furniture was rearranged. During the process of moving the child's bed, a small cross-shaped stone was found embedded between the floorboards near the headboard, unlabeled, weathered, and partially lodged in dried adhesive. Mineralogical identification confirmed it as natural staurolite of Appalachian origin. Neither parent recalled owning it. The child had not previously encountered the term. Following the stone's removal, the sleepwalking ceased within 2 weeks. Over the next decade, 3 additional case notes, each from unrelated families in the same region, document similar patterns. Children with unexplained night wandering, fixed-time waking, or repetitive gestures directed toward the floor or wall. In every case, a staurolite crystal was later found under or near the bed. All were unregistered. None appeared in the household inventory. There is no scientific evidence that staurolite has any influence on neurological or behavioral activity. It is inert, stable, and considered geologically unremarkable, except for its distinctive crystal habit. However, its persistent appearance in sleep disruption environments has resulted in informal notations across Appalachian pediatric sleep logs. Several clinics in the region now include an additional step in home evaluations, inspecting the flooring within a 1-meter radius of beds used by children under 12 years old. As of 2023, at least 6 fairy cross specimens have been recovered during such follow-ups. None were documented as having been placed intentionally. Ranked 5th, Limonite, a hydrated iron stone, retrieved from a bedroom abandoned for sleep safety. Limonite is not a single mineral, but a generic name for a group of hydrated iron oxide compounds, typically formed through the weathering of iron-rich materials. It is dense, opaque, and exhibits colors ranging from ochre yellow to deep brown. Although widely distributed across sedimentary and lateritic environments, limonite has historically held little economic value, except as low-grade iron ore or a pigment material. In rural Bavaria, Germany, historical uses of limonite included small carved beads believed to draw illness from the chest. In several 19th century municipal health records from Franconia, fragments of limonite were noted as being removed from the sleeping quarters of older people after complaints of bedside chills and ghost hands. These entries were often made in margin notes without official medical classification. In 2009, a home health aide working in Lower Saxony filed an incident report after her patient, a 78-year-old woman with no psychiatric history, developed nightly hallucinations between 1 and 3 a.m., during which she reportedly spoke to wet-faced people standing in corners of her room. The woman was relocated, and the bedroom remained unused. 14 months later, during restoration of the home, contractors removing warped floor panels in the same bedroom uncovered a compact limonite mass lodged between floorboards beneath the left side of the bed. The stone exhibited dark brown surface oxidation and was partially embedded in a dried sediment layer, suggesting long-term placement without movement. When removed, it left a dark, damp outline on the wood, despite no signs of pipe leakage or water intrusion in that part of the house. Mineralogical analysis confirmed the presence of high iron limonite with trace silicates. The local origin was likely, but no documentation existed to verify that the stone had been brought inside. The family had no history of mineral collection or decorative use of natural stone. Following its extraction, the room was repainted, ventilated, and re-inhabited, this time by a visiting relative. No sleep disturbances or visual anomalies were reported thereafter. Similar findings have been recorded in abandoned bedrooms across southern Germany and northern Czechia. Cases involving residents who describe prolonged hypnagogic hallucinations, followed by abandonment of the room. In 5 such cases between 1997 and 2021, a limonite fragment was later recovered from beneath sleeping structures, either under bed frames or behind lower wall trim. Unlike radioactive stones, limonite has no emissions profile. Its thermal conductivity is low. It holds no magnetic charge. But in multiple post-event extractions, it has retained one shared characteristic: mild surface dampness in dry, sealed environments, frequently adjacent to areas associated with long-term nocturnal distress. Ranked fourth, Chrysoprase, a silicate found beneath the mattress of a patient with recurrent visual sleep intrusion. Chrysoprase is a cryptocrystalline variety of silica belonging to the chalcedony group. It is colored apple green by trace amounts of nickel. Unlike translucent gem opals, chrysoprase is typically opaque to semi-translucent, with a waxy surface texture and low fracture resistance. The finest specimens have historically been found in Poland, Australia, and Kazakhstan, where nickel-rich lateritic soils intersect with silicified zones. In Lower Silesia, Poland, archival records from 1972 to 1988 at a regional psychiatric care unit contain 6 separate case files noting nocturnal visual disturbances experienced by patients without active psychotic diagnoses. All 6 described a recurring figure kneeling by the edge of the bed during stage 2 or REM phase intrusion. The figure's appearance varied, but it was always associated with green-colored objects, either in hand or emitting light from within clothing folds. None of the patients were housed in adjacent rooms, nor did they have group therapy overlap. Sleep medication protocols were standardized and showed no correlation with onset. In 1985, Room 17 of that same facility was permanently closed to overnight patients after an institutional psychologist noted pattern consistency in patient sketches submitted post-episode. 5 unrelated patients had drawn an identical curved green oval placed directly beneath their bedding, though no such object was found during routine checks. It wasn't until late 1987, when the flooring in room 17 was removed for termite damage, that a flattened, smooth-edged chrysoprase mass was recovered beneath the central mattress platform. It had not been visible without dismantling the wooden bed frame. The stone measured approximately 6.4 centimeters across, was slightly translucent under backlight, and had no mechanical modification. Its surface showed signs of sustained downward pressure, consistent with decades of static weight. Mineralogical analysis confirmed it to be local chrysoprase of above-average purity, likely from one of the pre-war artisanal mines shut down in the 1930s. No staff could account for how the stone entered the structure. No patient records noted the use of mineral therapy or possession of gemstones. After removal, room 17 was briefly reopened for staff overnight use. No subsequent events were recorded. However, the extracted chrysoprase was not transferred to any national mineral archive. According to facility correspondence from 1990, it was handed over to an unnamed clinical consultant for subjective observation and was never formally cataloged. Since 2011, 2 additional cases involving undocumented chrysoprase have been reported, both in post-communist residential conversions of former institutional buildings. In both cases, occupants reported vivid, recurring dream sequences involving a fixed green light located near the lower chest area during sleep. In both, a single unpolished chrysoprase stone was later discovered beneath wooden bedding supports, with no evidence of prior placement. To date, there is no clinical mechanism by which chrysoprase affects sleep physiology. It is chemically stable, non-radioactive, and lacks optical activity in low-light conditions. Its pattern of appearance, following visual sleep disruptions and dream image repetition, remains observational only, with no known predictive correlation. Rank 3rd, Fluorite Cluster, a multi-banded fluorite formation located after dream recurrence logs were recovered. Fluorite, or calcium fluoride, is a halide mineral known for its cubic crystal structure and wide color range, from clear to violet, green, blue, and yellow. Under shortwave ultraviolet light, many specimens fluoresce strongly, a property that gave the mineral its name and the scientific term fluorescence. It is also tenebrescent in select varieties, temporarily changing color under exposure to specific wavelengths. In 1998, a solitary logger operating in a remote part of Namibia's Ocho-Zonjupa region began documenting dream sequences involving a large underground hallway composed of shifting, colored walls. His logs, kept on paper and later digitized by a family member, describe at least 16 episodes over 2 months, all occurring between 2:40 and 3:10 a.m., each ending in the same vision, a pile of pale green stones arranged in a spiral, then disappearing from the floor beneath him. During this period, the logger lived in a prefabricated single-room shelter, with no internal electrical lighting, relying entirely on a kerosene lamp and natural airflow. No devices were present capable of producing ultraviolet light or color modulation. The location was over 20 kilometers from the nearest geological site of interest. In March 1999, after the individual failed to return scheduled contact for over 10 days, a search party was dispatched to the site. The shelter was undisturbed, no signs of struggle, no indication of intentional departure. On the floor beneath the bed, resting on a rubber mat, they found a cluster of fluorite crystals weighing approximately 2.2 kilograms. The formation was composed of cubic violet, blue-green, and pale yellow zoning, radiating from a central pivot with faint phosphorescence under daylight. The logger's last journal entry, dated 2 nights before his disappearance, included the sentence, "They are waiting in the ground, but the door's inside." Spectral analysis of the stone confirmed the presence of high-purity fluorite, with traces of yttrium and europium. No known supply chain or excavation permit existed for fluorite in the immediate area. Transporting such a formation intact would have required either protective casing or prolonged stationary exposure. Neither was found. Field analysis suggested the cluster had not been exposed to outdoor elements and showed no abrasions typical of mineral relocation. The stone was removed and temporarily stored by local authorities, but it was not registered in any national geological database. In 2003, it was quietly transferred to a private mineralogical institute in Windhoek, where it remains under controlled archive conditions without an accession number. Since 2012, 3 additional reports have been made involving fluorite specimens discovered in post-incident locations, 2 in sealed rooms following recurrent dream pattern complaints, and 1 following a recorded dissociative episode in a high-altitude cabin. In each case, the stones were unlisted and unrequested, and they appeared only after the onset of visual dream repetition involving interior architecture and color cycling. Fluorite emits no radiation and is chemically inert. However, due to its optical responsiveness to UV and X-ray exposure, its role in subjective visual environments, especially in cases of sleep phase visual saturation, has been noted in at least 2 neuroscience working papers since 2020. Neither report claims causality. Ranked second, Libyan desert glass, a high silica impactite. Located following a documented sleepwalking event involving no prior contact with the region, Libyan desert glass, LDG, is an impact-generated natural glass, composed of up to 98% fused silica. It is typically found scattered across the Great Sand Sea, located between eastern Libya and western Egypt. Formed by a meteoritic airburst or surface impact approximately 29 million years ago, LDG is pale yellow to greenish in color, brittle and isotropic. It is not found in geological formations outside the Central Sahara. In June 2016, a small research station in western Turkey, operated by a private archaeological consortium, reported a sequence of nocturnal incidents involving 3 field personnel. Over 6 days, all 3 participants exhibited nearly identical sleepwalking patterns. They would exit their bedding between 2 and 3 a.m., walk barefoot to the same corner of the storage chamber, and then return to bed without regaining consciousness. None of the individuals had a known history of parasomnia. Environmental conditions were recorded as stable. Security footage confirmed the behavior, but showed no external disturbance or noise. On the 7th morning, the station's lead technician conducted a detailed floor sweep and discovered a small yellowish glass shard wedged beneath a shallow gap in the concrete slab of the chamber. The object had not been present in earlier footage of the inventory. It measured 4.8 centimeters in length, was semi-transparent, and had soft conchoidal fractures typical of tektites. Preliminary field testing ruled out quartz or synthetic glass. The shard was isolated and sent to a regional geology lab. Spectrometric analysis confirmed the specimen as authentic Libyan desert glass, with geochemical fingerprinting matching a source sector within the Great Sand Sea impact field. No member of the expedition had previously traveled to North Africa. No field equipment had been imported from the region. The lab report included the notation, "No logical vector of introduction, source material absent from all known Turkish sedimentary regimes." Following the shard's removal from the facility, the sleepwalking activity ceased. The research station continued operation for another 4 months with no further parasomnia reports. The shard was retained in off-site storage for 3 years, then transferred to the Meteoritical Glass Archive in Mainz, Germany. As of 2024, it remains uncatalogued. To date, 4 additional findings of LDG have been logged in unrelated residential or laboratory environments, following episodes of sleep disruption or spatial disorientation, none of which were within 2,000 kilometers of the glass's natural origin zone. No known mechanism exists by which LDG affects human sleep architecture. It is non-radioactive, non-magnetic, and chemically stable under all normal environmental conditions. The object's behavior under polarized light in shortwave UV is unremarkable. Its only persistent feature in all recovered cases has been a silent appearance, post-event, without prior documentation or chain of custody. No instance has yet been found that links LDG to dreaming content. However, in all 5 verified occurrences, its presence was only noticed after involuntary nighttime activity was observed or recorded. In first place, Marcasite, a sulfide mineral isolated beneath an occupied room. Following electronic interference during confirmed sleep paralysis episodes, Marcasite is a pale brass-colored iron sulfide, chemically identical to pyrite, but differing in crystal habit and structural stability. It crystallizes in orthorhombic systems, forming spear-shaped, radiating, or nodular aggregates. Unlike pyrite, Marcasite is chemically unstable in moist or humid environments. It degrades over time into sulfuric acid and iron oxide, a process that produces low-grade corrosion and measurable conductivity shifts in confined spaces. Marcasite has limited industrial value and is not commonly used in jewelry due to its tendency to oxidize. It is occasionally found in sedimentary basins and coal seams, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe. Its reactivity under humidity and potential for low-frequency electromagnetic distortion have been recorded in early mineralogical field reports but remain largely unexamined in residential contexts. In 2017, a mid-level telecommunications analyst based in Alba Iulia, Romania, reported an escalating pattern of nighttime electrical disruption confined to a single second-story room in a pre-1980 housing block. The disturbance began as low-volume audio interference in smart speakers and escalated to unexplained screen flicker in non-connected devices during early morning hours. Simultaneously, the room's occupant, who had no prior sleep disorders, began experiencing rigid body paralysis while conscious, accompanied by visual overlays, stationary human outlines perceived standing next to the bed, recurring over 5 nights. Power diagnostics ruled out voltage fluctuation. No RF leakage was detected. Signal monitoring using near-field spectrum analysis revealed transient phase jitter between 2.3 and 3.1 megahertz, which is well below consumer electronics thresholds but atypical for the environment. A structural inspection was conducted to identify potential ground faults. When the technician team accessed the floor cavity beneath the affected room, they recovered a dense, fractured mineral mass embedded in construction dust, oxidized on one face, and partially fused to old insulation material. X-ray diffraction confirmed the sample as naturally occurring marcasite, with high sulfur content and microcrystalline distortion consistent with long-term low-moisture degradation. Isotope analysis matched regional geologic layers, though the building itself had no known use of raw fill or mineral ballast. No documentation of stone storage, transportation, or intentional placement was found in the construction archive. Once removed, both the electrical anomalies and sleep paralysis episodes ceased. No other part of the home was affected. The occupant was relocated for observation, and no further symptoms were recorded. The specimen was submitted to a closed sample testing group under a regional engineering institute. Internal reports, not publicly released, noted that under low humidity cycling, the sample exhibited stray capacitance measurable up to 9.2 picofarads. enough under specific arrangements to introduce momentary signal disruption in substandard shielding environments. While not a health risk, this finding aligns with transient anomalies observed in biosensor platforms under lab conditions. To date, Marcasite has not been classified as physiologically active. However, in 5 separate cases across Romania, Slovakia, and northern Serbia, unregistered fragments of Marcasite were located beneath beds, flooring, or embedded in foundation gaps, each time following multi-night reports of visual static, hypnopompic intrusion, or unexplained environmental noise during deep sleep hours. No conclusive mechanism has been demonstrated. However, the recurrence of this specific mineral in closed residential systems, where sleep architecture collapses and interference appears in non-network systems, remains under open technical review. Not all disturbances leave a mark, but in these 10 cases, something did. The stones were genuine. Their compositions are verifiable. Their locations were documented. What remains uncertain is timing, why these objects surfaced only after the pattern began, not before. No formal studies link geology to sleep phenomena. Yet in sealed rooms, under undisturbed floors, beside beds where people woke frozen, these stones waited. Were they placed? Were they overlooked? Or were they always there, becoming visible only when the body failed to rest? The data doesn't speculate. It only notes where things were found and what stopped once they were gone. Let us know which one resonates with you in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.